Did you know that for this movie, Ronda Rousey was originally set to star in a gender-swapped remake with Nick Cassavetes set to direct? So I just got done seeing the remake of Roadhouse, which, if some of you remember, Roadhouse originally came out in 1989 with Patrick Swayze as Dalton. This is a remake I wasn't really sure about. I've only seen the original Roadhouse once. I just remember that the original Roadhouse was just a cheesy action 80s flick, nothing crazy going on, but it was still a fun watch for me. So seeing Jake Gyllenhaal get in shape for this and take on this adaptation was actually kind of intriguing for me, and I have a lot of things I liked about this movie. There's only a couple of minor things I didn't like about this movie, but I will save those for the end. First thing I liked about this movie is I really do like Jake Gyllenhaal's take on Dalton. It's a very different introduction to his character. I don't remember how Dalton was introduced in the original, but he was not a UFC fighter. He didn't have a crazy past like this version of Dalton's character does, but I think this version of Dalton I actually liked a little bit better just because he seemed to have more of a chip on his shoulder, a heavier cross to bear. But he also at the same time, he had that fighter mentality that I really liked seeing, but he was also really funny at times. I mean, there were a couple parts of my dude just beat up like 5 guys and then 2 seconds later he's driving them to the hospital and just being kind of nonchalant about, yeah, you know, I just beat up these guys and here they are. It was just a really funny mix of a super serious character sometimes and a very comedic, just didn't really care at times character. I did enjoy Ellie's character. She was kind of like the character in the original. Unfortunately, there was no character in this movie who matched Sam Elliott's character. He was a great addition in the original, but like I said, this is a very different take, so of course there would be some different characters introduced, but I would say my favorite character in this movie was Knox. I am familiar with Conor McGregor a little bit. I don't watch UFC, but I just know like his personality and kind of guy he is, and it seemed to me when I was watching this movie, Conor seemed to have a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't even have a script, because knowing Conor's character, he's just that kind of guy. I mean, he's a super tough, big dude. He can fight. He's a great fighter. His attitude towards everything, he played a really good unhinged psycho. I mean, there were times in the movie I didn't really know what to expect from him. He would just crack me up so many times in the movie, and I think Conor McGregor should definitely do more movies like this because he has a knack for it. I also did like the action scenes in this movie. They were really brutal. The one scene that I was kind of hoping to see in this remake was the famous throat rip scene, but they didn't include that in this one. That's really what Roadhouse is known for. But in this one they had some really brutal fighting between Dalton and Knox a couple times. I mean, every time they faced off, it seemed to get even more brutal and they upped the stakes, and watching those two go at it was super entertaining. And knowing that Conor McGregor is a professional and he's just throwing all these moves out against Jake Gyllenhaal, who had to get shredded for this role. I read some articles that Jake actually did take some real punches in this movie, so I gotta say hats off to Jake for just taking those punches, because it takes a lot to go against a guy like Conor McGregor. Then I'd say the only thing I didn't like about this movie is I felt the dialogue was pretty bad at certain points. I get the whole cheesiness part of the movie, but the dialogue was terrible at certain points. I mean, certain things that didn't need to be said, but also just like how it was delivered. Then really the only other minor thing was I felt that it kind of dragged down a little bit. I know it's not like an exhilarating movie. I wouldn't invest too much brain power in this movie. I just like good scripted movies no matter what kind of movie they are. There's bad dialogue, it definitely kind of gets me disinterested for a little bit until the dialogue gets back to where it's supposed to be. But if you liked the original Roadhouse, I would highly encourage you to check out this remake, and I think you're gonna like it. So for Roadhouse, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 Mudflaps, and remember, leave me a thumbs up and drop the comments below. What is your favorite cheesy action movie? See you next time.